Yeah. Okay. Well, we're going to run out of time if I don't move on. So here we go. What's an advanced health directive?
Well, advanced healthcare directive is what we were talking about. It's a specific instruction in it, and it more commonly refers to end-of-life decision making. So this is the place where you are given a list within the document that cites the different kinds of interventions that might happen if you're in a catastrophic accident or you have a terminal illness, frequently seen for elderly people who are suffering from Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And there are a number of things that you can choose to have done or not do. And those things are the obvious, like a respirator, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, and they can include pain relief. Do you want pain relief? Whether it will hasten your death or not. You know, if you get too much medication, it might weaken your heart, but would you rather that or have pain? And it also addresses the issue of withholding nutrition or hydration if you can't eat or drink through your mouth. Some people...
So it's like the tube...
correct, either down your throat or cut into your stomach. Some people want that if they can't take food by mouth. Some people don't want it if they'll never be able to eat regularly again. And some, you know, do you want it temporarily? So there are a lot of factors that are built into that document. In California, the Advanced Healthcare Directive and the Durable Power of Attorney are packaged together as one document. So the front of it is the Healthcare Directive.
Okay. So let's see, what other preparations can you make for your care when your health declines?
Again, we're back to having these discussions.
Yes.
Talking with your family members about your values and your desires. And you could go preventatively and look at, if we're talking about an elderly person now, although these things happen to others too.
Yes.
And you can go take a look at what kinds of facilities you might want to live in, or you can start looking at how you're going to support yourself in your own home and get the care that you need, who's going to provide that sort of thing.
Yeah. So it can be better to make these choices earlier than later, but on the other hand, sometimes, you know, one way or the other, you know, these things have to be done. And what I can do is share a little bit of a personal experience, and that is because it was so helpful for my family, and that is my father-in-law had a situation where he was suffering from Alzheimer's. And he stayed in his home as long as he could, okay? But anyway, my wife and I had gone on a vacation, and then he had a little spill walking back from the store one day. And I thought, well, gosh, what if something happens to me? By this time, my daughter had got married. She had been living with him for a while, but she got married and had moved out, so he's by himself. He said, what if something happens to me? So he says, I think maybe it's time for us to go looking around, you know. And at the time, he wasn't ready. Okay, he said, you know, well, yeah, we've looked, but I don't think I'm ready for this yet. Well, anyway, then a few months later, it was literally, I think it was the day after Christmas, we got a call from one of these care centers, and they said, we just love Wally, and we have a place for him here. We've moved him up the list if he would like to come.
How nice.
And so then my sister-in-law and brother-in-law happened to be down. They took Wally over. My poor wife was sick in the back of the car. She's the one that really had the healthcare authority. But anyway, so Wally goes in and says, well, I'm ready to move in now.
Oh, good
right
for
now.
him.
You know.
How much time was there between?
It was like just a couple months.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, it was just a blessing, you know, all the way along. But anyway, so while you can, it's good to go and preview and think about these things.
Well, and to talk to the person about, you know, at what point functionally will you feel that that's an appropriate move for you, and speak of it in terms of not what ailment you have, but what functional abilities have you lost so that you can't safely cook your own food or, you know, like you're describing a fall, that could be very dangerous for someone out walking around and
Yes.
falling on the concrete.
Yeah, and there's also the issue of cost, and I don't know if we're going to have a chance to talk much about it, but anyway, to have people stay with you all the time is really, it's kind of prohibitively expensive. So it's very difficult for people to afford to really stay in their home indefinitely when they get into that kind of a condition.
Well, there are long-term care policies that will cover in-home support. You have to be pretty diligent in looking and paying the right kind of premium to get one that's adequate to support you in your home.
Right.
And even then, there usually is a shortfall.
Yeah. Okay. So why don't we talk a little bit, many people have heard of these various documents. And so what I wanted to do is let you have a little discussion about them as they relate sort of to elder care, to health care for seniors and so forth. So we have this durable power of attorney that we've talked about a little bit, a conservatorship, a living trust. So how do these things sort of play together, or what roles do they have?
If starting with a conservatorship, it's not a document actually. It's an appointment by the court of someone. It's kind of like the agent that we talked about in the healthcare power, but in this particular case, it's someone that's appointed by the court, and that may or may not be a voluntary appointment if the person is not able to consent or they're resisting. It may be necessary for their protection, and that guardian, in California we call it a conservator of an adult. In other states they refer to it as a guardianship, adult guardianship.
Okay.
That person has the authority to decide where you live and how you spend your money and that sort of thing, but they're highly supervised by the court.
Yeah.
And there is a code section that requires that the conservator make decisions based on the conservatee's wishes, insofar as it's not harming the conservatee or violating their duties to the conservatee.
So that's sort of a conservatorship. So what we've
Right,
got
it's
then,
sort
as we
of
said,
like-
there's a lot of supervision there. They're kind of expensive in a way, and so that's
They
why
can be, yes.
that's why we look at these other alternatives.
Right, the conservatorship can be expensive because the conservator has to have an attorney drafting the documents and filing them in court, and there are a number of processes that are required, so it does increase the cost. And sometimes it's necessary, but it should be a last resort. If one has a living trust, then, for example, we're talking there about finances, the healthcare decision making we talked about already. The living trust is a document that's meant for financial management, and what's nice about a living trust is it does a lot of things, and one of the things that it does is set up your assets in the trust to avoid probate, but it also puts in place, you can be the trustee to start with, and then it puts in place a successor who will step into your shoes when you're incapacitated. And it's unique in that way because it's a smooth transition. So if you have a trusted person who you feel is capable of making those financial management decisions, I highly recommend you do that.
And then